Coming back to the structure of Vedas, we have said that each Veda has got 4 parts. They are the Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads. The collection of mantras or hymns are the Samhitas. Brahmanas are the ritualistic texts that include precepts and religious duties. Each Veda has Brahmanas attached to it. So we have the Samhitas, that's the hymns. Then the Brahmanas rituals, what are things to be done, what kind of rituals to be performed. So in each of the Vedas we have both these Samhitas and Brahmanas. Aranyakas, they are called the forest texts, intended to serve as object of meditation for ascetics who live in forest and deal with mysticism and symbolism. So they are the Aranyakas. And then we have the Upanishad, form the concluding portion of the Vedas and is therefore called the Vedanta. So end of the Vedas, that's the philosophy or the Upanishad, is called the Vedanta, the end of the Vedas. The Upanishad contain the essence of Vedic teaching. So each Veda has got the theology and philosophy. Theology that is meant for the forest dwellers, what is to be done. So in fact each Veda will prescribe certain duties to different groups of people. What are the types of rituals to be followed, what types of hymn to be sung, and then the intending to specify the type of rituals and then the direction to those forest dwellers, and then the Upanishad, that is the teaching, what is the what contains the essence of Vedic teaching. Like that we have for each, that means for the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, each of these Veda has got all these 4 parts. So taking individually, one Veda is a complete set. That if you take Yajur Veda has got Samhitas, then Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishad. So like that all the Vedas will have. So Upanishad will give the real meaning or what it contains, the teaching. What is the importance of these Vedas? Vedas are considered to be the mother of all scriptures. Although the Vedas are seldom read or understood today, even by the devout, they no doubt form the bedrock of the universal religion or Sanatana Dharma. So these are the basis of the called Sanatana Dharma. The Upanishads, however, are read by serious students of religious tradition and spirituality in all cultures and are regarded as principal texts within the body of mankind's wisdom traditions. So other two, that is the ritual text and the hymns, perhaps it is not read so much by even the devout persons as such. But at the same time, they form the very basis of the Sanatana Dharma, the welfare of everyone. That is the very basis of that. Then the Upanishads, that is the philosophy behind each of these, the teaching, that is perhaps read by all the serious students of religious tradition and spirituality in all cultures and are regarded as the principal texts in the body of mankind's wisdom traditions. So when we want to look into what are the wisdom saying or the sources for the teaching and all that, the more we dwell into this philosophy or the end of Vedas, that is Vedanta. Upanishad teaching also called the Vedantas. So what is the content of this particular Veda? What is it aiming at? So they are the ones which are telling us what are these texts, the importance of the text. So Vedas are forming the, or it is like a mother keeping all this thing together becomes the real source of all the scripture, tradition and various aspects of the culture even. We can say it belongs to this. The Vedas have guided our religious direction for ages and will continue to do so for generations to come. And they will forever remain the most comprehensive, universal of all ancient Hindu scriptures. So that's what we can say about certain things about the aspects or the how does it become the real source of the scriptures. The Vedic scriptures are the spiritual literature of the ancient Indian culture. So if you really want to understand the real culture, the Indian culture as such, then we need to look into the scriptures. Unlike perhaps the Western tradition, there is a difference here. Here the religion and the life, there are no much difference as such. So they go hand in hand. The life of human person, or we can say there is no separation between the knowledge and the religion as such. Or science and religion, that's together here in the sense. It's very much connected. So if you really want to know the scripture, the culture, you have to go into the Indian scriptures. So what the tradition, what it had been. So the Vedic scriptures are the spiritual literature of the ancient Indian culture, written in Sanskrit language. They are comprised of a huge collection of books which include material, that is mundane literary material, then religious, ritualistic, as well as spiritual, monotheistic knowledge. So what are the scriptures consisting of? That is about the material things are there, spiritual things are there, then there is the religious aspect, that is the ritualistic aspect, and the spiritual things, that is about God and monotheistic knowledge. The expression Vedic is derived from the Sanskrit word Veda, which means knowledge or revelation. According to the Vedic history, they are written down 1,000 years ago. The date, however, is not very important because without doubt, the knowledge contained in these scriptures was existing a long time before it was written down. The writing down of the scriptures came much later. It is not as soon as the sages or the rishis or those sannyasins who sat in meditation and they got a revelation or they came to know or enlightenment, immediately they did not write down because that time it was not existing. The paper or the possibility of writing down, no proper script as such. So all how it was composed, or they were able to spell it out, speak out what they felt in a language which understood by the people of that time. So they did only the oral way, the oral tradition. The communication was that way. So for more or the long years it was so. Therefore, when we look into the scriptures, we come to the fact that the date are not important, but the wisdom what is contained in the teaching. And this wisdom that is contained, it was existing much before it was written down. So how did they come to know, or that profound wisdom, where did they get it? That is the question. Therefore, we come to a conclusion that it was inspired. It's not purely human innovation. It's not purely human finding, but it is divinely inspired. The Veda may be understood by simply accepting what Veda says about itself. Since Vedic self-understanding may be amazing or even unbelievable to the probable misunderstandings. The different opinions about the origin and the history of the Vedic scriptures are due to the fundamental difference of the world views between the followers of Veda and the modern mundane scholars. So why this difference of opinion? Where does it come from? Depends on the modern scholarship and the ancient, the history, the fundamental difference of the worldviews between the followers of Veda and the modern researchers. So there is a difference of opinion with regard to that. So they say acceptance is there, that is what is said in the Veda or the philosophy, the Vedanta. It's a profound teaching. It's a great teaching. But the question, how did they come to, or when and who wrote it, that is always, there is a lot of discussion regarding that. So there is no one agreement regarding that, only saying it's very, very ancient. And before it came into the written form, it was already existing, because that was the only means of its transmission. And from time immemorial, when they began, that's very difficult to ascertain. So we have only more or less probable dates regarding that. So according to the Indological worldview, such a thing as Vedic scripture doesn't even exist. Modern Indology says, but a mere accumulation of the texts from different sources written over a long period of time, starting about 1000 to 1500 BC, after the hypothetical alien invasion into Indian subcontinent. Only then a Vedic culture was formed through mixed tribes. If you believe this scenario, then it is natural to think that Indian scriptures are nothing but a mass of unsystematic mythological texts. So if we are to understand that way, that a lot of hymns were there, collected all together, and then that date would be around 1000 to 1500 BC. But then after the hypothetical alien invasion into Indian subcontinent, that is more or less the time of the alien invasion into the Indian subcontinent, and that seems to be the probable date for the Vedas. So if we are to accept that, then what is that? Then it is natural to think that Indian scriptures are nothing but a mass of unsystematic and mythological texts. So would it be that, or it's going to be something else? Needless to say that the Vedic scriptures themselves in a completely maintain a complete different version. They refer to very ancient cultures, timeless revelations, and divine incarnations. Now, if you to take the Vedic scriptures themselves, what do they say about? They refer to something very, very ancient. So they maintain a completely different version. We maintain a complete different version in the sense we say that, okay, this is the time, 1000 to 1500 BC, more or less the time of the alien invasion. And that seems to be the time of the culture. So if that be so, if we are to accept this scenario, then we are forced to say that Indian scriptures are nothing but a compilation of all these, or unsystematic. But what does the scriptures say about themselves? They completely have a different version. They refer to very ancient cultures, timeless revelations, and divine incarnations. They also say that the entire body of Vedic knowledge has a systematic structure and a clearly defined goal, being compiled by the great Vedic rishis, seers and sages, handed by Vyasaveda about 5000 years ago. This knowledge was then systematically put into written form in order to prevent it from being lost during the upcoming age, which was foreseen as the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, the most fallen in the cycles of ages. So looking into that means we ascertain certain aspects. The sense we look into the scripture itself, what do they bear witness for? So they bear witness to something, referring to something very ancient, the cultures, timeless revelations and divine incarnations. And they say that the entire body of Vedic knowledge has got a definite goal, a purpose is there. So that's what the scripture would say. But then for our modern man, when we apply the principle of what is the time of its composition, when was it written down, who are the authors, so we go into such details with our modern way of research. And the modern way of research will reveal to us the fact that perhaps the Indian scriptures, are they really based on valid sources? That would be the question, because there seems to be no systematization. On the other hand, when you look into the scripture themselves, what is existing, there seems to be a very direct or a purpose behind each happening, and there is a reference to very ancient cultures, revelations and divine incarnations are there. So they have a definite goal. So that's what the Vedas themselves say. They also say that the entire body of Vedic knowledge has systematic structure and a clearly defined goal being compiled by Vyasadeva about 5,000 years ago. This knowledge was then systematically put it into written form in order to prevent it from being lost in the upcoming age, which was foreseen as Kali Yuga. So it was written down so that nothing being lost. Already perhaps so many things were gone in the course of time, because nobody can remember the volumes of things which, because a human brain perhaps, it has got only less capacity to kind of ascertain or retain everything, unlike the modern computer. So wherein we can store perhaps so many much more things than at that time. So human limitation is there, and therefore it's possible that many of the things lost on the way. So whatever they could later gather, that had been written down, and they are the pointers for us, telling us that there is a purpose or there is some systematization. The structure of Vedic scriptures can be compared to a staircase with many steps, with a specific scriptures corresponding to each step. The Vedic scriptures describe both the goal and the steps leading to its goal. So that is what the scripture is, the guidance. So the Vedic scriptures can be compared to a staircase. So a staircase will have so many steps. So with many steps and with specific scriptures corresponding to each step. The Vedic scriptures describe both the goal and the steps leading to this goal. They are non-sectarian because they respect people of all steps. They simply encourage everyone to progress up to the next step. There is no question of converting or pushing. There is no question of converting or pushing, because everyone has to walk for himself or herself. Or, as the Vedic saying goes, even in a flock of birds, each bird has to fly for itself. We can see the flock of birds which are flying. So no one can do it for other. So each one has to fly for itself. It's in the flock of birds. So similar way, the Vedic scriptures are compared to a staircase with so many steps. So each step leading to the next, and each step has got a specific Vedic text accompanying it and for a specific goal. So each step has got the scriptural backing and the goal for that. So step by step you are progressing. So that's what the Vedic scriptures are, or it is compared to a staircase with many steps with the specific scriptures corresponding to each step. The Vedic scriptures describe both the goal and the steps leading up to this goal. They are non-sectarian. It's not for only a particular group. It is non-sectarian because it respects all steps. They simply encourage everyone to progress up to the next step. There is no question of converting or pushing someone to the next, because everyone has to walk for himself or herself. Or as the Vedic saying goes, even in a flock of birds, each bird has to fly for itself. So in the Vedic text, what we find is that each person has to strive for his own salvation. What we have seen earlier also, that is the goal of the human endeavor is the moksha, the liberation. So artha, kama, dharma, moksha. So these four ends of human life, the artha, kama leading to dharma, and dharma leading to moksha. So that is the goal. So how this is achieved, that's with the scriptural backing. So each step is specified with a scriptural backing plus a goal to reach. So step by step a person is progressing, and each one has to walk for himself or herself, and no pushing or converting another person, because that is not existing. It is individual's effort. The individual evolution is not limited to a single life. The Vedic understanding is based on the concept of reincarnation. So where does that teaching come, the reincarnation? So the individual evolution is not limited to just one life or a single life. The Vedic understanding is based on the concept of reincarnation, which declares that the steps of this symbolic staircase can also be understood as lifetimes. In other words, the almost proverbial Hindu tolerance is originally based on a solid philosophical understanding and shouldn't be confused with the attitudes of merging indifference or everything is one. So what the different steps could specify is about the lifetime, different lifetime, that it brings about the theory of reincarnation. So it is not ended with one. So there is going to be many more births and deaths which are going to happen in the course of time. From a superficial point of view, Vedic scriptures may appear to be unsystematic and even contradictory, but this impression can easily be reconciled by finding how each step is connected to the goal. So that is what is important. A comprehensive view is important than the individual. So from a superficial point of view, the Vedic scriptures may appear to be unsystematic and even contradictory. But this impression can easily be reconciled by finding out how each step is connected to the goal. What's the goal of human endeavor? It is a liberation. So everything that is artha, kama, dharma leading you to the goal of the liberation. The final goal is that liberation. And what makes you that is bound, that is various aspects, that means your actions, the karma phala. So every action produces fruit. And if that action is good action, then good fruit, bad action, bad fruit. So the final disposing of all the karmic effects and then reaching to a liberation or a samadhi or that of the moksha is a state wherein no more of that karmic principles you are affected. So there is no more reincarnation from then on. So that's the stage of the visualization of that stage of the moksha or the liberation that is coming down to human being. So from a superficial point of view, if you look, perhaps it is so unorganized, but there is already, each step could be connected to the goal. There is a specific way to reach. The four Vedas, the scriptures of this category generally labeled as the original Vedic scriptures. That is, the four Vedas are categorized. The scriptures of this category are generally labeled as the original Vedic scriptures, the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda. These four Vedas are known as Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. Rig means ritual, and it contains many hymns and prayers or mantras in the worship of the universal forces called demigods. Yajur means ceremony, and it mainly describes how to perform rituals. Sama means singing, and the scriptures of these categories contain many other mantras as well as strict rules how to chant these mantras according to mystic vibrations. Atharva means a priest who knows the secret lore. These scriptures describe many different kinds of worship and invocations. In a broader sense, many other scriptures of material knowledge are also counted in the Atharva Veda, like Ayurveda, pharmacological sciences and means of maintaining health. That is Ayurveda. So the Atharva Veda contain many other scriptures. The material knowledge also contained in the Atharva Veda, like Ayurveda. So in short, we can say that the Vedas are containing sources of or something that supports human life in various aspects. That is the what we understand by the Vedas. Rig means ritual, Yajur means ceremony, and then Sama means the singing, the scriptures of these categories contain many other mantras as well as the strict rules how to chant these mantras according to mystic vibrations. Atharva means a priest who knows the secret lore. These scriptures describe many different kinds of worship and invocations in a broader sense. Many other scriptures of material knowledge also contained in these Vedas. So Vedas are going to really help human beings in their existence, supporting in different ways. That means health is also an important aspect, as well as the spiritual and mental health. All of these teachings are supported to encourage a human being to understand that he is not an independent entity, rather he is part of a universal body depending on many higher forces. What the scripture is telling, or the Vedas are telling, that human being is not an independent entity, rather to be understood as he is a part of the universal body depending on many higher forces.